Welcome to the Discover Your Mad Skills podcast. I'm your host, Cam Welsh. As an emeritus professor at the Haskayne School of Business at the University of Calgary, I bring over 2 decades of experience in coaching high-performance case-solving teams. With a track record of guiding 301 very successful teams and mentoring countless students, I'm passionate about helping aspiring young professionals uncover and elevate their unique talents, what I call their mad skills. In each episode, I'll engage in insightful conversations with former team members, fellow coaches, former students, and industry connections. Together, we'll explore specific mad skills from my guests' experiences and valuable advice to empower you on your journey of discovery. Join us and start transforming your potential into remarkable skills that will set you apart. In this episode, our guest is Samie Ly, co-founder of Innovatank, an excellent platform for case solving in the classroom and developing mad skills. She's not only a mom and an author, but also a teacher and the co-founder of Discover Your Mad Skills Toolkit. Sammy has played an invaluable role in helping me launch the various components of this project. Our conversation follows Sammy's journey from her beginnings as a case-solving competitor to the creation of Innovatank, and discusses how she supports and advises aspiring young professionals in discovering their mad skills. On this episode, I have my guest of Samie Ly, co-founder of Innovatank, and also an author, a mom, a teacher, and a whole bunch of other things on her list. And I just want to start by letting Sammy talk to us a little bit about herself.
Hi, Cam. Thank you, and thank you everyone for listening, and thank you for having me. So, as Cam mentioned, I'm a mom. My name is Sammy, and I spent 12 years in academia. I was studying statistics. I taught statistics, which has now become more the sexy job, which is surrounding data analytics and machine learning, artificial intelligence. And once I completed my PhD, I decided to co-found Innovatank, which is a tech platform in education that's primarily solving cases and helping different types of corporations as well as students to figure out their own skills, which we can call mad skills, and also to elevate all of these skills throughout education and get ready for the industry.
Yeah, so I think one of the big things is I met Sammy as a judge at the John Molson's International Case Competition, 3 or 4 years ago. It was a virtual competition that year, and I think we connected over the fact that my team came in and told the story, and I'm grateful we had Sammy as a judge, because I think she fought really hard in the deliberation room to have us come out on top because of the story. I think one of the things, maybe tell us a little bit about the story of Innovatank, its mission, and I think this whole idea that you've got in behind. When we talk a lot, we talk about this whole idea of mad skills, of storytelling. Maybe give us a bit of an idea of what motivates you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, when I did my schooling, I realized at one point is that it was a bit redundant. I was learning theory, but where was I able to apply it? And I stumbled upon case competitions. And when I did competition, we were consulting for Maxi, and I realized that I'm a person who doesn't speak in the classroom because, I feel weird about it. If I raise my hand, I feel that I'm going to be judged. But when I was consulting for Maxi at the same time, all of a sudden it became a mission. And in the classroom, it just became a lot more relevant. So I kept asking questions about branding. So how can we make this better? And we were finally able to apply the theory to an actual situation. I love that. But I also realized there were not many opportunities, and it's a great skill, or it's a great way to sift through recruitment, to sift through talent. Those who persist through an entire challenge are definitely better off than those who can get 100% on their multiple choice, for example. So I thought it was very useful both in education and in the corporate world to create that. And when I sat down with my partner Stavros, we said, well, how can we make it scale? And since we have a good background in tech and data analytics, we said, let's do it as a platform and let's uncover it throughout the world.
Yeah, so I think the other piece of this is that you've really thought about this whole idea that you've taken your experience as a student, right? And again, we've talked about a lot of this together. when we've been together. But this experience as a student, how did that really influence you in terms of sort of that decision to start Innovatank, that decision in terms of these are the types of things that students really need, and you're thinking in terms of putting those components into, or trying to get those components at least into Innovatank's platform?
That started by attending a lot of case competitions and being very critical about them. Afterwards, also my personal experience. I'm a hardworking student, but I also want to know where will I go after my schooling. So if I don't start networking now, I'm going to be left, there will be a gap. So the decision was an ongoing, although we theoretically had something in mind, it took over 7 years to iterate it, to make sure that it was actually relevant in the industry. And that I think was the most important part, is that we had to run a lot of competitions. We had to work with a lot of companies to realize what is of value to them. And today it's reporting, it's data analytics, it's the scalability at a fraction of a cost. That's very relevant to the corporate world.
Yeah, so, and then I guess the other piece of this is, how does this tie into what we've become to refer to as MAD skills, those skills that companies are looking for their new employees to have, or to develop within their new employees. And I think hopefully in higher education, there's a focus on how do we get these skills. I know I look at LinkedIn posts on a regular basis from all of these people, and there's these lists of, here's the 20 things that employers are looking for. And you know what? None of them are these hard skills. There's all these soft skills like empathy and things around leadership and how do you communicate. So I'm just sort of wondering a little bit in terms of, how did you think about that? And how did you sort of think about getting those pieces incorporated into the platform?
I think, Cam, is that we're coming in at a very good time in this world, with artificial intelligence coming in, a lot of automation. And as a student, I really love tech. I was like, it's okay if, I forget what is the theory of a regression model. But if I can understand the foundation and that I have the skills, the research skills, the analytical skills, then I can pretty much do anything. And I think that was really the reflection piece, is that if you understand the foundation of how things are done, then you can adapt with the world. So I kept looking forward. And today when you look at a LinkedIn post, the job posting is 25 years of experience with this bachelor and this bachelor, but no one tells you, is this person determined? How is this person's attitude working with other team members? And also, there's also this question that soft skills cannot be measured. So it sat with me for a very long time. For about 10, 15 years, people kept saying, you cannot measure soft skills. It's something that, it's fluid. But today we have so many data points. So that really felt futuristic. That really felt on point with what we wanted to do.
I guess that's a really interesting piece, that soft skills can't be measured. And I think that's something in my 2 decades of coaching students and change and how I approach things in the classroom, thinking and fighting with area chairs about, why aren't you giving it an exam rather than why are you giving this type of assignment, and sort of thinking about the ways that I can take. Yeah, so I'm just sort of thinking about my experience in terms of when I talk to my area chairs at the time. They always wanted me to make sure that I had this exam piece in the course online. And I was thinking, yeah, there's a piece of that, but a lot of the pieces that students needed in the senior courses that I was teaching were much more around the soft skills, etc., and sort of how do you incorporate that. I'm just wondering, in terms of, as you develop Innovatank and go further, how you're thinking about trying to get that ability to measure those soft skills and let the students know more about how those soft skills work.
In terms of Innovatank, we really went through different pilots. So when we were doing the pilots, it was in person. Every opportunity we had to capture data about soft skills, we tried it, and it was at the beginning manually. So then we translated whatever was working manually into something that was automated. So today, depending on the different types of cases, different types of challenges, and how our clients want us to measure different skill sets, then we can really determine a nice curriculum or a design that is catered to it. So for example, if the client wants to measure the teamwork, then we'll put in exercises that really evaluate how a leader or a follower or any types of different personalities play along with a certain challenge.
Yeah, and I think that's really important. I think the other piece of this, and I think this is the other piece I struggled with, and I think talking to you really helped me, especially in the last few years. How do we communicate those to the actual student, the actual participant in the case course? And sort of, what are your thoughts around that?
Well, that's a really good question, actually. It's almost like they don't know what they don't know, and we don't know what we don't know. So it's a process. I think you keep repeating the process is trust the process, and that's exactly what it is. Is that my thought is if you do something once, you're going to probably hate it, and if you're running away from feedback, if you think that feedback is a bad thing because it's criticizing you or not beautifying what you're doing, then it's you're kind of blinding yourself from how to get better, and therefore it becomes an attitude. So the entire company, whatever we do, it's all about the attitude and building those skills. We want different participants to want to seek for feedback, because that's a way to get better. So instead of doing one case, we want them to be hungry. And once you're done with one, then go to the next one and then keep going. So it's no longer about winning anything. It's not about I'm the best and I can just, shut down and be the best. It's constant improvement. And I don't know if you know about Dragon Ball Z or Dragon Ball. So the cartoon, Stavros and I are big fans, and it's about Goku. Goku starts off as a human, then he goes into a tournament, and his master says you cannot win. So his master disguises himself as Jackie Chung and tries to beat Goku in order for him not to be arrogant. But Goku's story, 500 episodes later, he ends up fighting with the gods, which are impossible challenges, just because he's never stopping. He's always looking for improvements, and therefore you're able to reach something that's impossible. So that's kind of the motto we've been putting in for Innovatank, as well as any type of competitions.
Sounds good. I think just before we get into sort of giving, I guess, potential students and potential young professionals some advice, I think the other piece, and I think this is really important, and again, it's something that I think we've talked about a lot, is the importance of mentorship. And how do you take sort of got this computer system where students can talk to each other, they can work together, they can deliver pieces. But how do you incorporate that importance of mentorship with the technology? Because I think as a coach and as a mentor of teams over the number of years, I think there's those two components to it. And I just sort of think I'd like to learn a little bit about more of your philosophy in terms of that mentorship, and how do you incorporate that piece with the technology? And I think this is really important in terms of those teachers, those corporate trainers that might wind up using the system.
Yeah, absolutely. I think mentorship is critical to anybody's growth. It's also a game of time. My mentors were 30 years ahead and therefore could signal me, hey, don't do this because I went through it. I'm saving you some time. So that type of mentorship, and I now meet students who are 10, 15 years younger than me, and I see the same drive. They're going through, they're trying to hit something, but I tell them, look, there's a wall in front. Just be careful of that. So the cycle keeps on going, and without mentorship, we also don't grow. But I think it's also a trust in the system. We're living in a very digital world. We can meet people across the world. And even on social media, on LinkedIn, it's nice that you connect with someone, but the chances of you becoming great friends with this person is extremely rare. I'd say the trust is not there. So how do we create a community where trust is actually there? We can know that we have each other's back and that we have the same philosophy. I think that was very important. For example, the cross-continental cohort, we were 9 teams, but there was just this really amazing trust that everybody was helping each other out. I think that that's something that it's quite an accomplishment, I think.
And I guess that really relates to the sort of this idea of building a community. And I think you've got some efforts with things like the World Case Committee and that, really trying to build this community around case solving. But I think even more so in terms of building what the two of us are referring to as mad skills. And maybe talk about that a little.
Yeah, absolutely. I think having worked in an institution or multiple institutions, there is still the silo effect. Everybody's so busy. Once you hop onto the courses, you have to run your courses, and then by the end of the semester, you're more or less a bit burnt out. So you're trying to recover. But there's very little time reserved to explore outside or to make connections. And I think you attended a lot of case competitions. That's where you made a lot of friends from other universities. But without this experience, an average professor would be working on, their own research, working on probably the similar conferences that they go to every single year. And I just found that, coming back to your point, it's a great way to break those silos for institutions to start working across different disciplines. If you're in business, most competitions you attend to is all business people. Now we're starting to reach out a little bit on the engineering, but it's not enough. There's medicine, there's law, there's architecture, there's psychology, there's visual arts, music, and cinema. All of these disciplines don't know anything about case competitions because they were never given the invitation. So I think there is so much we can do if we're open-minded, and that we can tolerate different languages and realize, wow, how smart we are when we work together.
Yeah, no, I think, and I say that's really important. I was sitting in Rotterdam one year just after an opening ceremonies at, I think, RSM Star. We were sitting on the Maas River by the Erasmus Bridge because the hotel was rather close to the bridge. It was a very noisy hotel with the traffic going over the bridge every night. But talking to the students, and it was really amazing in terms of the discussion wasn't about the cases, the learning that's going to happen in terms of the cases. It was all about the people they get to meet, the networking, their ability to expand their global influence, their global network. Those pieces, and I thought, you know what, this is what really makes sense in terms of it. And as you know, I'm a big supporter of EngCom in Montreal, and part of that is it brings this whole different type of group together that I think is important. And we've done this at Cascade Digital Innovation Challenge in terms of it's not limited to business students. We're trying to promote it to students across campuses, across Canada, across the U.S., and hopefully a little bit more international. We've had a few international students at this point. But I think those pieces are really important. And I think, so I guess that might turn us into sort of the other part of this conversation in terms of what's your advice for these aspiring young professionals? How do they develop this set of mad skills and sort of tips and those types of things? And I think you can also talk a little bit about, I know you've authored one book, it's available on Amazon, called Quiet, and a series of books, and how those are springing into this whole idea of helping people sort of get set and be able to develop the skills, that list of 20 or 25 things that keep popping up on LinkedIn that all of these LinkedIn gurus are saying, and videos are saying are important to people as they enter the business world.
Yeah, I think it's a very timely. So I spent quite a few months finishing. It took about 3 years to work through those two books, and it's so timely when we say, do you have any tips? What should you chase next? And I'm actually taking a back step, is don't chase anything. Just sit back down, and because we're so overwhelmed. So the topic of the Quiet book is, how do you create influence without noise? And very much it is yourself. How confident are you as a person about your own skills, and how do you take intentional steps, one step at a time? And I think that links very much to mad skills, discovering mad skills, is because if you want to be a good presenter, you just want to absorb the learning. Don't be afraid, don't be embarrassed Don't think of these things that will stop you from trying, and really take every step of the way intentionally with truth. That's very much the idea, is like we have to stop chasing everything because we're just burning ourselves out. Trying to post on Instagram or LinkedIn and all of this it's good if you're doing it for yourself, but if it becomes an obligation where you're stressing yourself out and you're driving in traffic every single day, you're unhappy, then it's really time to just sit down, take a pause, and see how do you discover your own skills. So that's very much the motto of what I've been doing throughout the years as well. I've been that person who's been chasing, running, trying to, and I burn myself out. I'm not eating well. I'm not living well. I'm unhappy. I'm depressed. And you won't learn unless you're okay with yourself, unless you're very happy. So I think that would be my answer.
We've talked about that a lot, and I think this sort of moving into retirement. I started off with a year-long sabbatical, moving into retirement in January, so it's been about 5 months now. And it's just, it's sort of this whole idea of let's slow down a little bit. I know what I want to try to accomplish, and it's just sort of thinking about how do we get that. And I think one of the important things is how do we start to communicate that to these people in business schools or engineering schools or whatever school they're in, and then getting them to also sort of think the same way as they enter the business world a little bit, and sort of it's accomplishing. And I think I did this as a coach quite often. It was we would sit down during the debrief and there's all these things that just didn't seem to work in this presentation. What are the ones we need to pick on, right? You can't fix everything, but we can fix these things. And I think you talked about process a little bit earlier, and the whole idea is how do we develop that process? How do we develop that process amongst ourselves, amongst our team members? And I've had conversations with another fellow that I think I'm going to have on a future podcast, Jeff, who was a student of mine back many, many years ago. I think the first year I taught. And we've stayed in contact for, 25 years or something like that. He's started out at the railway and then moved on to the consulting world, now has his own consulting firm. That's something we've been discussing quite a bit in terms of he's looking at his consulting needs, and we've been talking a little bit, and we'll start to talk a little bit more now that I've sort of figured out some of that quiet piece, and talked a little bit more about how do I help him, how does he help himself in terms of getting those teams to do that type of thing, and sort of figure out how they operate that process. Do you think there's any other sort of wisdom at this point in time that you have in terms of helping people think about what they need to do in order to get that skill set that's really important in terms of being a communicator, being a critical thinker, being empathetic, being the ability to sort of create some leadership skills and sort of lead quietly, lead from without authority, lead without the influence?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there are a few things. Time is of essence. When you're 20, you're 40, you're 60, or you're 80, you see things very differently. When you're 20, you're probably rushing through, you're trying to do the best that you can. But that's also before you have kids or a family. Take care of that, enjoy that moment, and work very hard. I just think that young professionals sometimes work very hard, but also be strategic with what you're going for. Are you going for brand names? Are you going for developing your own network? How do you build a network of really good friends, of people that you can trust? And I think that's a little bit understated most of the time. It's like, it's great, I'm going to networking, but how many friends do you truly have? I think it says a lot. And it sometimes starts in your 20s, in university years. That's where your friendship grows. And I'm in my 30s, and my point of view after being a parent is the future of my kids too. So my perspective of the skill set of success is slightly different. I'm actually thinking of not just myself, but the next generation. So I think those two things is work strategically. Don't work just blindly hard, because that often doesn't go anywhere and you burn yourself out. And then time is essence, because you don't know how long we're all going to live. So take advantage of what it is, and don't fear anything. Just try it, because you don't know what you don't know. I think the process is key.
Yeah, no, and I totally agree with that, and I think that's the big thing that I look for. And I had a conversation with a team in Budapest one year, and they had probably one of the best talented teams I've ever had in my life. I was blessed with that team. And we came out of the room after the first case. I think it was a 6-hour, 10-hour case or something like that. And we all sort of stared at each other and knew that there were 4 teams in the pool, and we were definitely the 4th place team after that. I think the one thing though is we then had dinner that evening on the Danube. They had moored ships on the Danube River that they turned into restaurants. Probably, in reality, a 15-minute walk from the apartments we were staying in, and I think it took us pretty close to an hour to get there. And it was just that conversation about, let's stop, let's think about the process, what really happened here. And it was really cool, because the next day was actually not a competition day. It was a day where we got on a bus and did a cultural and historic tour of rural Hungary outside of Budapest, and they had some scavenger hunts, which were part of the participation, I guess the social award. And it was really cool just to watch the team members as they sat in 2 rows on the bus across from me. And they turned from 4 acquaintances to 4 friends. And it was an absolutely amazing week, and I think probably one of the most rewarding parts of my career, in terms of that team of 4 people turned into friends. They turned into people that could easily communicate with each other. The trust just over the 7 or 10 or whatever number of days we were in Hungary increased an incredible amount. And they came out for the 24-hour case at the end of the competition, and they killed it. They absolutely killed it. They did an amazing job, and I think that's a big thing of it. They figured out the process. They figured out how they worked together, how they trusted each other, and it was really cool. And I think, again, that's something that we've talked about a fair amount in the past, in terms of how do we get this happening. And Innovatank does a lot of their competitions virtually, and I think we do see some of that happening. And I think that's a hugely important piece of this. And how do we drive those pieces? I guess the other piece of this is just give you a bit of an opportunity to talk about some of the upcoming projects, some of the upcoming events that you have at Innovatank. I know tomorrow we're sitting with a bunch of PhDs at Concordia virtually, hopefully helping them develop some of these. But what's happening at Innovatank?
Yeah, so Innovatank, we've been running it for a few years, and we are realizing that we're shifting a little bit the gears towards corporate clients. So we're really helping corporate clients find an ecosystem that is not only innovative, but can sift through the top talents. So the same way we've done with universities for many years, we're now shifting our gears towards serving clients that are in the corporate world. So that was one thing. I think it's a strategic move in that way to influence more students, because the gap is quickly being bridged, but the skill sets that are being taught in the classroom, there's almost a wake-up call these days, is that with ChatGPT, with AI, curriculums have to change, design have to change, and having a foot into how the world works after school may be quite beneficial for both sides. And on top of that, we're renewing, so we're building a trifecta, which is a WXP, so the World XP, but now we've built a three-way collaboration. So there'll be WXP Asia, which is a collaboration with IAGA, so the Green Aviation Organization. And there'll also be a WXP Europe, which is what we've turned across continental. So Miklos, Professor Miklos, and we'll be inviting all other institutions to join us. And then we'll also keep moving forward WXP America, which is what we've been doing in Canada, in the US, mostly in North America. And then the three will come together as a triple track to then select the top of the top. Yeah, so it's really exciting.
Yeah, I'm really excited for the WXP stuff because I think it's amazing to see, and I think having us collaborate a little bit in terms of how do we make that better? How do we deliver all of the skill sets or help the students deliver those skill sets across the world? And that kind of thing. I think that becomes a really important thing. Anything else that you're up to?
I'm writing a series which is called the Quiet Series. So it started off with a light version, which is the mindset of quiet, building influence, but being okay with yourself, hopefully hitting a general audience. The second book will be up in September. Actually, maybe up a bit earlier. It's about structure. Structures, process, and systems that we live in today. Questioning traditions. Why is it that we do certain things without really wondering why and who made this? Why were these rules? So something that I've been living through, why are mothers forced to put their kids in daycare after 3 months and they cry in a parking lot? Is it because society has not shifted from a woman and man worker type of situation? So I just find it's very timely. We're in a world where digitization is coming in, also the effects of how the brain develops. So that there's a lot of neuroscience, a lot of psychology in the second book, especially in research, because I really want to bring a light to how we educate students and how students will become in 20 years if they do not train or develop their neuroplasticity. And that's becoming quite alarming. I'm on multiple artificial intelligence committees, and students defaulting and using generative AI to give in their homework. It's okay, it's fine, it's a tool. But the thing is, we're no longer developing skills, and I think that's something we should really raise a conversation about, start talking, and all work together as a community to almost solve this problem. Like you said, it's a process, and students don't know what they don't know. They're just really trying to get to grades. But there are many ways we can design, and I think developing math skills becomes very, very important. If we were to focus ourselves on developing math skills for students and that they're aware of it, there's mentorship, there's coaching, there's a trusted environment, I think we would be able to solve this problem. So the structure book is a little bit on the darker side, I would say, but really revealing how I'm worried about the next generation. I'm worried about how my kids are growing, how we call them iPad babies, kids who are running around are no longer good, but you give them an iPad, give them a cell phone, they entertain themselves for 45 minutes, but what will happen in their own development? And I think that's a problem, yeah.
And then not to mention, we're also putting together a book on the toolkit.
Yes, of course.
Discovering your math skills toolkit. Which I've been trying to collect a whole bunch of my content piece, and Sammy has volunteered to be the first person to look at it and sort of put together an outline for us, and then figure out where we're going with that. So, thank you. That was really good. And
pleasure.
We'll talk to you very soon. Enjoy yourself in Greece. And, it sounds like you have to do some work there, which is probably the disappointing.
I'm always working, so.
Thank you for joining us on Discover Your Mad Skills Toolkit Unbarred Conversations. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you like the show, please subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app. If you feel inclined, we'd appreciate it if you could leave us a like or a 5-star review. Until the next episode. Join us in transforming the lives of young aspiring professionals by supporting our podcast, the Discover Your Mad Skills Toolkit YouTube channel, and our LinkedIn newsletter at buymeacoffee.com/treadsoftly or by scanning the QR code below. Your contributions directly fuel our mission to equip these individuals with the vital mad skills that today's employers demand. Together, we can make a significant impact on their career to success.